Today, we're taking apart, remagnetizing, lubing, and doing some solves on my GiiKER 2x2 SmartCube. When I got it, it turned pretty papery, and the magnet strength was a lot lighter than I expected. I was coming from the GiiKER 3x3 SmartCube, which has a lot stronger magnets, and they're not glued in place, so as you're turning it has an audible clicky feeling, which I actually enjoy because it's kind of not just a physical but audible clue that you're passing a quarter turn, or you're landing on a quarter turn or a half turn or whatever. And the 2x2 has very weak magnets that are firmly glued into place and just does not turn or feel anything like the 3x3. So I decided to take it apart and inspect the situation to see what I could do to fix that. As you see at the beginning part of the video, I really struggled to figure out how to get everything apart to get in there. So you have to take apart the stem. So you have to undo the screw and take the stem out. Then you have to take off the 3 colored tiles and then remove the kind of black housing that the tiles snap into so that you can finally get at the magnets. I was originally going to replace the magnets and use some super glue to reaffix stronger ones in place, but there's a lot of glue that you can see, the kind of white putty glue stuff that the current magnets are stuck in there with. And so instead of trying to pry those out, clean it, and then replace it, what I did instead was I chose some smaller medium strength magnets that I snapped into place on top of the existing ones so that it just increased the magnetic pull instead of having to totally replace it. And then as I piece it back together, I had to just make sure that the polarity of everything was correct. And the big challenge was just getting that last piece that is actually affixed to the core updated. The little top doesn't come off of that one the same way it does on the others, and so it was kind of an effort of dropping a magnet in and using some tools to get it snapped into place so that that one didn't rattle, so that it felt like the rest of them. It took me a while to get that all figured out and placed, but once it was done, it was fairly easy to fit back together. I just had to ask my partner for some help at the end because one, I've forgotten that you can loosen the screws, which is very helpful for fitting the pieces in. And two, this is like a 48 millimeter puzzle, 48 and a half. So it's the smallest 2x2 that I have. And working with those little pieces was just infuriating at the end. So due to how much work it is to take it apart and then reassemble and even just add the magnets to it, I really don't recommend you do that unless you're super unhappy with how it turns. Even now, when I'm testing it before I added lube, it felt a lot better and more similar to the 3x3 that I did like. And so to kind of counteract the super strong magnet pull that I added, I did the lightest weight lube that I have, which is Lunar from Speedy shop. That way, once I kind of pass that magnetic pull that's holding it in place, it really glides quickly to the next stop. And I guess I'll just say here, I know that magnets don't just help with stopping the cube turns, but they also do really help it hold its form as you're turning. And so as you're kind of twisting and pushing things around, it keeps the layers aligned as they should be so that you don't get really hard lockups. That was one of the big reasons that I did this, not just the papery feel or the light magnet touch. When I was turning on the original, just kind of out of the box experience, I found myself locking up a lot. And it wasn't a problem when I was just doing the beginner method or the kind of layer by layer method for a 2x2. But once I decided to learn Ortega, it became a much bigger issue. My time was going from around 30 to 40 seconds to like sub 20 with just learning that new method. And I learned that because there was a Panda Cuber video coming up where they were going to be asking people to, solve along with them and post their times. And I knew that my, 40-second solves would be kind of embarrassing. So I decided, it's time to learn that 12 algorithm set that I need for Ortega. And it really kind of cemented the CFOP training that I've been doing on 3x3 because it helped me to recognize the same patterns, but in a little bit different way. So it's similar algorithms, a couple of them just slightly adjusted, but I found that learning Ortega on 2x2 did actually help my 3x3 solves, especially on the OLL and PLL, which, basically a 2x2 is just you solve the bottom layer and then you go right into the orientation of the last layer and permuting both layers. You don't have to worry about that F2L step, which is really the time sink for a lot of 3x3 solves. Here I'm getting into some online battles using the SuperCube app. I sped up most of the solves to 2 times, and whenever you see it slow down to 1.5, that means that it's about to go into real time for one of the 2 or 3 solves that I was really happy with that were sub 10 seconds. One of the things I like about the SuperCube app and the Gone app as well, compared to something like the GoCube or Rubik's Connected, is when you're battling someone online, the person who wins, it doesn't just stop the timer for the other person, but they are given kind of a set amount of time in which to finish their solve before they get a DNF. And that really gives you a chance, at least, to finish out the solve and have something in your history to compare against and see, how did I turn? Where did I get stuck? Where could I have been more optimal? That way, it's not just you lose and you don't have any solve history in your record for that loss other than an L. You actually do still have the solution that you found as long as you get through the solve. The one thing I will say is that especially the SuperCube app makes a very annoying kind of countdown beep as that's going, and it can be a little frustrating because that will start even if you were solving faster than the other person. It kind of works asynchronously, so you get the scramble at the same time, and your solve is started timing from there. And so if you finish the scramble quicker and you do an okay solve, the other person could have done a slower scramble and done a faster solve, but you start to hear that countdown anyway once the other person is finished. It doesn't start once you have met the time that they have finished at. So, for instance, once I finish a 2x2 solve here, it starts a 30-second timer for the other person from that point, no matter where they are at the solve. It's a little annoying. I tend to wear headphones when I'm using this app so that I can still hear that, but it's not loud enough to be, ear-piercingly annoying. And yes, the volume is very loud. So if you're using this app for 3x3 or 2x2, make sure you turn your volume down because all of the sound effects are pretty cranked up to 10. The other thing I want to talk about with learning Ortega was that I decided to learn it color neutral, which means instead of solving just for like the white cross or the yellow cross, or in this case the white face or the yellow face, and then moving forward onto solving the rest, you learn how to solve it from whatever the optimal face is for that scramble. So you'll see in a lot of cases I'm starting with like a blue face down and the green face up, or the red face and orange face. So you learn how to solve one face and then its opposite color. So blue and green, red and orange, white and yellow. And then from there you just look at each scramble and figure out either which is the fastest first face to solve or which is the most optimal bottom and top face to solve. So sometimes you'll have one where there's several faces that have 2 already solved. Maybe some are a bar, some are opposite, adjacent, and you have to figure out, okay, which one is either going to be the easiest to complete or which one is maybe going to take a step or 2 more, but give me the most optimal top layer possible. I am trying to learn this on 3x3, but it's a lot harder with the F2L stage where you're having to pair up, the edge and the corner pieces to fill out the first 2 layers. The 2x2 does not have that problem, obviously. It's pretty much just all edges. And so I have at least used this as an opportunity to start learning yellow cross as well as my usual white cross, but my time does still go a little bit longer when I'm doing yellow. And that's because, especially when you're looking at the cube, you have to remember, I generally look at it from the green face as front, since that's how you scramble it. And so you have to remember that the red and orange flip based on whether you're doing white or yellow as the beginning cross. It's not as big of an issue on 2x2, but I want to say it was very much worth it for 2x2 in terms of once I learned Ortega, I was starting to get in that 20 to 30 range, just doing white face down as the initial one. And once I went color neutral, it was more like 10 to 20 because you're really just able to pick the best solve possible that you see and then move from there. So even when my turn speed is slower or I'm a little less fluid in my solve, I still usually end up winning 9 times out of 10 online because my move count is lower and I'm just finding the more optimal solve for the case at hand. So that was a long 2x2 video, and I just want to say this is a pretty awesome cube. It's the only 2x2 that's a smart cube on the market. So if you're interested in 2x2 and you love smart tech like this, definitely pick it up. It's worth the money, I think. And if you want to dive into upgrading it like I did here, a magnet kit is pretty cheap, or you can just buy the size of magnets you want on eBay or Alibaba or something for pretty cheap and augment it yourself. It's not difficult, just know that it's going to take some time. Definitely was not as fast as I made it look here because that was sped up like 1200%. But thanks for coming on this journey with me. I will keep checking in the future on how my Ortega solving is going and if I do anything else to modify this 2x2. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications whenever videos go up, and keep on cubing. Bye.